everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to be with you all today for another Hotel Business Hot Topics, part of Hotel Business's virtual roundtable series. I'm Glenn Haussman, your host for today. You might know me from the Vacancy podcast and LinkedIn, and I really appreciate you tuning in because today, guys, we have got ourselves such a great session because we're going to be tackling some of those issues that you out there, I know you're thinking about every single day, but don't know where to start, right? Technology is moving so fast. We're all confused. And today we're going to clear things up a little bit. And the way this is going to work today is we really want you to participate as well. And for those of you who know me, I can ask a few questions, but this has to be about what you want to learn out there. So please be sure to use that Q&A box and we will ask those questions when it fits within the flow of the conversation. Also, we'll be here until the top of the hours. And remember, ask as many questions as possible. Also, this is going to be reviewed in the November issue of Hotel Business Magazine, which I'm sure you're going to want to see, as well as hotelbusiness.com, social media, LinkedIn, X, all of those kind of places. And of course, it's going to be aired as an audio version on the No Vacancy podcast feed. So if you're not subscribed to that, please do that. And also on demand at hotelbusiness.com. I want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Axonify for making this possible. Hey, thank you, Axonify. I appreciate it. All right. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going from check-in to check-out, really talking about operational agility and guest satisfaction. The more agile we can get, the more free-flowing we can be, the more in that flow state our business can become. I think the better we're at getting guests to be happy, right? And hoteliers out there that are reacting to change are the ones that are always going to be a step behind. So we want to get you to be able to lead change, not react to it. Because when you're reacting to it, and I'm sure our panel here is going to be able to clarify that and, really give us some better ideas here. You're always working behind. You're never able to be on the offensive. You're always running defensive. And we want you to be able to meet those rising guest expectations head on and deal with how your operational shifts are changing, how your workforce can be ready when they need to be ready, and how to stay engaged with your staff and your guests in order to stay competitive. So we're going to get to that right now and help you deliver amazing standout experiences while driving the bottom line. And to help us to this today, we've got Eric Rubino, Chief Operating Officer, Principal of Extreme Hospitality. Hey, Eric, how are you?
All right.
And we got Mr. James Carroll, CEO of Crestline Hotels. James, great to see you today. Thanks for
Glad to be here. Already having fun.
All right, that's good because I'm stressed out getting this intro. I want to get to the good content, not me yapping. Jessica Lee is next. She's the Global Officer, Talent Acquisition and Associate Development with Marriott. Never had a chance to speak with her before. Excited to learn about that perspective. And of course, Melissa Burkhardt, CEO at Axonify, who I got to know yesterday for the first time. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. Thank you all for being here. So let me throw this out to you. James, let me start with you. Operational agility, what does that really mean to you today? Or is it just a bunch of gobbledygook out there?
Biggest thing it means to me, operational agility, when I think about that is making sure that our employees are not stuck behind a desk, stuck in an office, working on administrative tasks, doing charts and Excels and reports, but that they're out in the hotel, interacting with the guest. The managers are interacting with their employees. The leaders are seeing what's going on in their hotel with both their employees and the guests. Because if they're all doing that, then they have the ability to react to changing situations of either demand, crises, opportunities, no matter what they are. They have the ability to respond. If everybody's heads down and buried in a computer or writing a report, you have no agility.
No, that is absolutely right. And that is definitely a solution there, but it's so hard. Eric, I mean, it's very difficult. People are stuck behind the desk. A lot of times they have work to do. And in an ideal situation, we'd love for everyone to be up front. So how are you trying to balance taking that face focus with customers out there and still being able to achieve what you need to do to make sure that you can satisfy customers?
Yeah, I think when you talk about that, it's leveraging technology, right? And making sure that we're utilizing, our tech stack to the advantage of our team members so they can remain agile. So they have the ability to, adapt and be able to, look at the guest that's in front of them or look at the issue that's arisen today and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tackle that, instead of being bogged down and saying, I have a budget presentation that I need to prepare for that's 2 weeks out. By giving them technology and opportunities to leverage that, they're able to do what they need to do and then jump to the next issue and identify that guest in front of them. And I think even when it's something as more of a front level employee, such as a guest service agent who has somebody in front of them, making sure that they have the empowerment and the tools and the technology so that they're able to be agile and empowered in that moment to be able to adapt to the solution and the issue that's right in front of them with that guest who's coming in. They're in a rush, they got in a car accident on the way there, and they're flustered, and making sure that our teams know how to be agile in those situations to impact the guest experience and ultimately drive the business at the customer level.
Jessica, I mean, if associates are entering the hospitality industry, they obviously want to take care of customers, right? What is generally going on in the hospitality hiring zeitgeist about where potential associates' heads are at?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I feel like we're at a little bit of a different time right now. A few years ago, it was, we'll take anyone. Like, we were having trouble hiring. And I think, James, you probably felt that as well. And I think we few years past that where actually the job market is such that there's a lot of talent out there. And so some of it is like right now we're trying to educate people on like, what is it? Like, what are the opportunities here? Because there are a ton, and really making sure that we're finding those people that have like that right mindset to be able to, thrive in this environment. And so totally different ball game right now. I have to go backwards just on one thing, Glenn. I don't know if you mind me doing this, but James said something for me that is so like spot on. And it is about the behaviors, like when we talk about operational agility. And I can't help but call upon Mr. Marriott in particular, because he has these 12 rules of success that he's talked about for years. And they are like these enduring behaviors that I actually think are spot on for what are we talking about with operational agility. So James, you said it, like one of number 7 is see and be seen. And then there's this bit about communicating by listening. And then there's this most important thing for me in the operational agility space of like erring on the side of taking action and just doing it and doing it now. And so I bring it up also because when we're thinking about the talent we're trying to get in the door, like I just think it's so important to set expectations for them around like, what is it? Like, what is the job and what are the behaviors? And so that list I actually have like pasted on my bulletin board here because I just think it's so timeless for like, what are we talking about when it comes to operational agility?
Yeah, and Glenn, one thing Jessica said,
James.
Yeah, one thing Jessica, which makes a great point. Again, being agile also requires empowerment, right? So your employees can't be agile if they aren't given the authority to make decisions. You want them to take care of the guests, but you tell them nobody but the GM can comp a room. Nobody but the GM can give point. You have to take the risk that your team will make the right decisions and empower them. Because if not, the agility isn't as useful, and so I think her point's excellent.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will correct me on this factoid, but I think it was Ritz-Carlton that first started with they can make a decision up to $2,000 without getting any repercussions. They may be told, try not to do that again. But I think that sets a real cultural standard. Jessica, I'm correct?
Yeah, totally right. Still the policy. They're taught that on day one. And there's really actually not a lot of oversight around like, what did you do? Here's all the paperwork you need to fill out on it. So empowerment is at the heart of it for sure.
Melissa, how are you thinking about uniting these things? Empowerment of employees, customer success, and ownership happiness.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Really, a really wise person told me once, or has told me multiple times, that the guest experience can never exceed the team experience. And so really having that team empowered with that bias to action, that's super important. Another thing we think about with agility is its ability to be adaptable, and adaptability comes from confidence. And that's something we really focus on, is how do we use our solutions to help the team feel confident that they're role ready, they're ready for the shift, and that they're also ready to react to everything that's coming, because they either are prepared before or they have the tools and the avenues they need to be able to react to whatever that guest needs, because the guest expects to be seen and heard and be reacted to right there with what they need. So we really focus on how we can build confidence in teams as one of our key pillars that I think is key for agility.
I love that. Eric, how are you feeling about confident employees?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a theme here of empowerment, and confidence comes from empowerment, right? And making sure, I think, you touched on it, Glenn, and Jessica, you reaffirmed it with Ritz-Carlton, and making sure that when you empower your employees, that they don't get in trouble necessarily for making a decision, right? If that culture doesn't breed and doesn't stand behind that empowerment, it really doesn't do a great job at bringing that through for the guest experience, because they'll be just too afraid to use it. So like you said, Glenn, using that as a coaching opportunity and saying, hey, take this empowerment, run with this, that gives them confidence to know in that moment they're able to correct this issue. They're able to come up with a solution. And if it's the wrong one, then so be it. Then we can have a coaching conversation later. But making sure that they know that we stand behind them at every step of the way, that's how you build that confidence.
Yeah, that is so exceptional in order to be able to do that. And I love what we've already started to discuss. And I'd like for you guys out there to make sure you ask your questions so we can get those answers that you need to be more successful. But I like what we've really established so far is the idea that good, confident employees and getting them in the right space by treating them the best that you possibly can is really the best way to yield results. But another thing we have to think about is how to kind of combine that with personalizing that guest experience. Not thinking about technology for a second, Jessica, how are you thinking about training talent to be able to respond accordingly without having the dependency of a device around to help them?
Yeah, well, the tech does really serve as a foundation.
Yeah.
Sure, like you got to have like the information you need in order to personalize a situation. But I think some of it is also people at times. What I find is they need some inspiration, creativity in order to facilitate it. You can know that someone's preference is a Diet Coke with 2 cubes of ice, but like, can you deliver on that in some creative way? And the ways in which you do it for me is that you got to have really good storytelling. You got to have examples around you so that like, oh, here's a way in which I can do it. So whether it's Ritz-Carlton or some of our other brands, we actually rely a lot on storytelling because I think it's just so powerful in helping people remember and be inspired. And so we love our systems to tell us what people's preferences are, but then you need these cultural levers around it to actually let people go do it and feel good about, how they're going to execute against it. So tech support, but then cultural things around it for me are really important.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking about is that flexibility in personality to be able to assess a situation and relate to somebody. I'm a big believer right now that human to human contact is more important than ever in the hospitality sphere. And I want to make sure that we keep that going. But Melissa, in order to create ultimate satisfaction in customers, we need to combine that humanity with that tech understanding. So how are you thinking about enabling the human being to be more successful with the backbone of technology supporting them?
Yeah, no, great question. So yeah, being a technology provider to the hospitality business, we think a lot in what we design, and we're thinking about that human-centric design. So technology needs to fit in the flow of work. It needs to fit into that person's life and what's being expected of them. But more than that, it really needs a human-centric design. So you really always have to start with the people in the process and work back to say, then how does the tech empower the people? So you're thinking about the guest, you're thinking about the team member, and then in at Axonify and earlier in my career, it was always about how do you bring the tech along in a way that it takes away the part that's mundane, but it also makes the person using the tool feel more powerful. You want them to feel like this isn't something that's adding to their list, it's taking work off their plate, but it's also like amplifying what they can bring to themselves. So we use that as a design filter in all that we do.
That's pretty cool. James, how are you thinking about then technology and what works for your team?
Sure. We operate hotels under some of the major brands and independents. So a lot of the systems and the branded hotels are provided for you.
Yep.
And the brands have been doing a great job to improve their systems, update them. One of the big things we try to avoid is having your staff have to go through multiple systems to accomplish kind of a single event, whether it's a check-in, a check-out, some sort of a recovery from a challenge. We want to keep them as much as possible in a single system so that they move quickly between their tasks and are able to then engage with the guests. And I think we're seeing that movement in the industry. In our independent hotels, we seek out those technology tools that maybe sometimes you can't get, you'll get wrapped up in having the perfect tool to do each specific item. We'd rather err on a really great tool that can do most of them very well, so our staff isn't forced to learn 5 different systems and jump back and forth between them to do their service delivery.
Yeah, and especially with you continuing to want to elevate people and bring new people in, that training can start to get complicated. Eric, who makes a lot of good points. How are you thinking about imbuing your organization with that operational agility to help your team members?
Yeah, in an environment where the tech stack seems to grow endlessly, I think it's being intentional around those tools we're bringing in, and James touched on it, making sure that they talk to each other and making sure that they add as a resource to the team. And I think with what Melissa said and what you alluded to, Glenn, and getting back to that personal interaction with the guest, you have to have that conversation first to learn what items and the preferences that they have during their stay, right? And then giving them the tools and the ability to put that information into a system and to be able to grab that information on a moment's notice and with ease to be able to execute on it. And then back to what we talked about with empowerment and being able to execute on that. But I think around the tech piece, being, intentional, being strategic, making sure that our stakeholders, and the line level associates that are going to be utilizing that tech have a say in how that impacts their lives. So I think oftentimes we sit in a meeting and we hear something like, that's great, that's going to be awesome, our team's going to love that, to find out that it created 2 new issues and didn't really solve the first issue in the first place. So, giving our team the ability to provide that feedback and share and demo the product and, help us understand where their pain points are and making sure that that intentionality is brought all the way through the decision process.
Eric, that's a great point. Really want to underscore that for everybody that's paying attention here, because sometimes we forget that it's the people that are in the trenches that have the best solutions to the issues, because they are living it and breathing it every single day. They're not just popping in for an assessment of what's going on. So dig in, talk to those people, make sure they help you. But Jessica, I want to go back to making sure that people can be the best people that they can be. How are you thinking about training them so they are in a place where they can make those observations, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually in some ways really similar to the conversation that we're having, in that I think there's a lot changing with training. Like, I think we in the past been in the space of, we're going to put people in a classroom, we're going to role play, we're going to do those classic things, but in reality, people don't retain much of what they end up learning in a setting like that. And so what we're trying to evolve to is putting a greater focus on being able to use data to see what kind of knowledge increase people have, getting a sense of how confident they are, but I think really importantly, doing things in the flow. Like, I was sweating a little bit inside, James, when you're talking about people having to swivel from system to system to do things, because I know that we have created that pain as a brand company, and so I know that for sure. And learning is like another element of that. Like, the last thing I want is someone to be in the middle of trying to check someone in, some special scenario comes up, and then they don't know what to do. Like, I don't want them to have to go to a binder underneath the desk and find the tab that has the job aid, or go into another system to figure out, like, how do I complete this transaction? Like, you got to be able to offer people learning, like, right in the flow of what they're doing, so that they can quickly, like, look up and say, oh, I can handle this for you, customer who's in front of me, and just give me one moment to wrap it up and get through it really quickly. So from a learning perspective, we're trying to make those pivots and shifts as well, because I think, our customers don't have the patience to look at the top of your head the whole time while you're trying to furiously scramble and get that thing done. So getting it in the flow, bite size, for us is a big part of it.
I love that. I love that. I've seen some.
Top of people's heads. That's the joke. How do you know someone is new? You see the top of their head. Yeah. We're trying to do that thing.
Unfortunately, systems are changing a lot, so you don't have to type for 45 minutes for basic commands. But with things continuing to ever change, Melissa, training is not really a one and done kind of thing, is it? It's more probably a continuing nurturing process.
Yeah, you got it. And Jessica and the team at Marriott have been an amazing partner. And she alluded to some of the things that we do at Axonify in particular. And we really think about micro-learning and learning being a daily habit.
Could you describe micro-learning before you get into that, so we can all understand a little bit more?
Yeah, well, you talked at the beginning about having fun. So we start the same way. How do you start with having fun? So a team member can come in, play a little bit of a game. It actually resets them from the chaos that they have just, been involved in, like transitioning from their life into work, like gets them, really kind of set up for the day with a reset. And then there's, questions and engagement and little quizzes, and there's leaderboards. And so there's fun ways to engage where people don't even really know that they're learning. But it's little tidbits, and they have their own personalized adaptive learning. Every day it changes based on what can help them the most in that moment. And all of this really goes back to our roots in brain science, where I don't know if you've seen things like learning how to learn, where it's like those little reset moments are really important for retention, sort of resetting. It gives the team member an opportunity to just sort of also, whether it's a hard skill or just reconnect with the brand or get a kudos, it can be a combination of things that they're getting introduced to, not just the sort of hard skills, part of training. So operators can use this, like the daily habit that they've created with their team, to basically activate their team in all the right ways to be able to move with what that individual team member needs, to be able to adapt to what the business needs, and to be able to adapt with the customer. So that's at the core of what we do to help hospitality businesses that really just always have to stay on the tip of their toes to be able to respond to guests, have that agility to come all the way through into their teams.
That's pretty cool. James, what do you think about that? How are you approaching this kind of?
I mean, these points are excellent that are being made, and they're spot on. One piece I would add is that it's also incumbent upon us to hire the right person for the right job.
Right.
The joke here in our company, looking at personality profiles, is that I would be an awful front desk agent. So guest satisfaction would plummet. And so no matter how much you trained me, how many tools you gave me, what you tried to do, I'm just the wrong guy for that job. Right. And so I think part of the hiring process has to involve, in some manner, looking at personality profiles, what people naturally excel at, what environment they're going to work well in, so that you set them up for success. So you put them in a job that they innately are going to be able to do well or will enjoy, and then give them some of the excellent training that Melissa and Eric and Jessica are all talking about. Give them that training and those touch points, support them, give them the good leadership, and they will thrive. But I do think it's important to always think about that right person for the right job.
I love it. This is one of those moments where it's like, I didn't know we'd get into something like this because I didn't even think about something like this. So Eric, let me jump over to you. How do you think about pairing people with their career destiny when it comes to working in your hotels?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that James brought that topic up.
Yeah.
It's something we talk about too. We say it a little differently. We say we don't ask fish to fly and we don't ask birds to swim. But we have to find that right person for the right role, right? And oftentimes they're in your organization, and sometimes they're just in the wrong role. And I think that's part of when we're evaluating our team and we're looking at things. And before we're quick to say, this isn't going to work out, let's look at the intangibles, right? Where's the personality? Where's their ability to connect with guests? Where's their thoughtfulness for maybe the business side? Maybe they have a real ability to handle numbers, right? So maybe they need team and mentorship to be on our accounting team, right? Maybe we can move them up in that department. And vice versa. Maybe, somebody found themselves in that major in college and they really have a knack for connecting with our guests. But, that's really not where their passion is. And maybe they could make a really great hotel general manager because they understand the business and they could connect with guests and lead teams. So I think that's very important. I think it's a really important piece to this puzzle. I think, something I want to touch on too that, Melissa had brought up about micro learning. And I love what Axonify is doing. And it almost sounds like gamifying learning. And the entire panel has talked a lot about empowerment throughout this conversation. And how do you empower your team and then push them to make those right decisions? In something that Axonify seems to be working on and building that micro learning, that gamifying of that, in these small little sessions, you can come up with those little scenarios to make sure the team is empowered to do that. And I think by cross training and having a platform that allows that, goes to James's point of maybe somebody says, wow, I'm really enjoying the questions that pop up about guest satisfaction, and right now I'm in the accounting department, and I'm really enjoying what they're working on in that department from that cross-training perspective, and then they can identify where they're more likely to succeed within the organization.
And I have a feeling the technology could really identify that as well. Jessica, let me ask you, one of the problems that our industry has is an incredibly high turnover generally. And now it's got me thinking, Besides just people's lives changing and stuff like that, and the nature of people getting to the business, is there a component of people coming into that front desk job when maybe when they would have been better in the kitchen or something like that, or another department? How are you thinking about helping your hotel owners out there understand that in order to increase that engagement and thereby lower people leaving the organizations?
Yeah, so in our hiring process, one of the things that we layer into it is a bit of an assessment so that we can get a sense for it's not really about like the specific experience. Like, do you have the capabilities for certain kinds of competencies? And then if so, like we're going to slot you into the right role. So we try to get at it up front in kind of a measurable way through assessments. People can also do this too through like a good interview process, but we like assessments for the objective nature of it. So that's one thing for us. But I think separate from that, like there's also this bit of when you get someone in the door, hopefully they're in the right role to the point that others are making. But we like have great data that tells us when you put a greater focus on learning in the first 30, 60 days of someone getting in the door, those hotels and teams that put a greater focus on it have lower turnover. And in the long run, they're going to have higher engagement scores too. So I think when you start to like pair these things of hire the right person, it's not always about the experience, get them into the right role, make sure you bolster them with good support through learning, mentorship, otherwise, like that's like the recipe to help people, stay. But I do think there's this other bit that, this industry and our hotels have like such a diversity of functions and roles, and some of it is exposure. Like once they're in the door, if they're not in the right role, like that they could move, let's say, into F&B, that they could move into engineering. I mean, we see so many people make these really interesting pivots where they didn't even realize certain kinds of jobs or careers existed in the industry. And so the only way they get that is through good exposure, good collaborative type of cultures. And so we're really lucky in that way that people can make those pivots from within. And there's just like an openness to it as well. Like I'm always shocked when I see someone who comes from F&B and now they're in HR with me, but then it happens all the time. And so it's really lovely that we get to do that.
And I will tell you, the industry has come so far. Back when I got my first job with Hotel Business Magazine back in 1996, I remember one of the issues that we were talking about was cross-training for other jobs. And there was a lot of resistance to the notion of if you work the front desk, that you could even work in another part of the hotel. So it's amazing how things always change, how everything in life is not a matter of certainty. It's a sense of fluidity. And we're going to continue to change and adapt as we go. And James, you're always thinking, you're always adapting. You're always trying to find ways to get closer to your employees so they satisfy guests. So what are you thinking right about now in order to create those career paths that lead to excitement for them so they're like really engaged with you?
Sure. I think, Jessica mentioned, I think engagement starts with onboarding.
Yep.
A lot of times we're desperate to fill an open position. We're constantly short-staffed. I think one of the worst things you can do is have someone show up on their first day and, a few hours into it, asking them to cover a shift for you because you're running short. Yeah. They feel untrained, burdened, scared. It's not a way to start your career. So onboarding's enormously important. That first day needs to be fabulous. The first week, really great experience and a lot of learning. Signing mentors to people who not someone who can be a mentor, someone who wants to be a mentor, who likes doing that. Finding those people so that they have someone to go to constantly. So that smooth start. Okay. And I think after that, it's about investing in your people. And you mentioned cross-training. That's a form of investing in the people, getting them training in new things. AHLA has got some great programs. You can put folks through different apprenticeships. And I think when you start investing in your people, they really buy into the mission in the hotel. They feel invested in, they want to invest in your guests. There's a real wonderful relationship, I think, that develops, and it leads to great things. Employees stay longer because they feel invested in. That saves you money. The longer they stay and the harder they work and the more they enjoy it, the guests feel it. You get better guest scores, and that leads to economic improvement. So it's a real virtuous cycle.
Melissa, I see you're nodding along there.
Yeah, no, I mean, we we understand this flow of the team, through the whole business, and it's really great to be able to support all that agility within the team. So it's not just in the moment with customer, but you want to be able to support people rolling through. And it's really interesting because some of those changes or going up the ladder, even going back to what Jessica talked about, some of that in the past required a lot more like role play, hands-on. It is really interesting how much technology is changing in a way that people can get exposure to lots of to other things around them. They can, sort of emulate being in a role. And so it's going to be interesting to see where the world goes, and with this new generation being, up and coming generation, and just how they learn and how they interact with technology. It'll be interesting to see how they can take the combination of seeing what they're seeing in the real world in the roles around them, and then how they're able to really taste test those opportunities through technology as well, to see what might be the best path for them. I have a question that came to mind too. Do you mind me flipping it around?
Turn the tables on us over here.
Well, I was thinking while you all were talking, it reminded me of a conversation I had with an operator a couple of weeks ago, and she was stressing the challenge of this young generation entering the workforce, especially in hospitality. That we know it's a very online generation, but then also COVID exacerbated. For them, that a lot of what they would have just seen as a customer themselves in a restaurant or hotel, like a restaurant, became all delivery, and so like the whole like experiencing hospitality themselves in different worlds like kind of shrank, or it reformed for them, and now they're looking for roles in hospitality, and the operators are saying, well, I'm having to rethink things that I thought I could sort of interview for behaviors and then teach skills, but now I feel like I need to really be able to look at someone's adaptability and in the behavior side of things, because people need to see a lot of hospitality role modeled in a different way to even be able to see what's expected of them, just eye contact, things like that you might have taken as a given. So I just wonder how much you all are seeing that in the evolving, like, how is the evolving workforce, like changing your talent strategies or thinking about how you need to think about hiring and training people?
Yeah, I'd like to hear the answer to this too, gentlemen, because I've got 21-year-old twins that were in 10th grade during COVID, so they are totally different than me. Eric, how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think that is spot on. There is a lot of that. And I think that the COVID piece further exacerbated that, because a lot of people didn't experience what we're trying to provide at our service level. But further than that, it also thinned out our workforce, right? So now we have a green team training an even greener team, right? So we don't have a lot of that legacy hospitality skill set in our organization or in our properties that are showing the team, this is how we approach it, this is what we do. And something we talk about, especially at our more luxury and boutique properties, where the experience should be to the nth degree. Sometimes the people you're hiring for that have never experienced that, and then oftentimes they won't have an opportunity to experience that. So we talk about making a point of giving them an ability to go out into the community. If there's a competitor or there's somebody who's doing things the right way where they can experience it, we want them to be able to experience that. We want them. That's training dollars in the right direction, right? Let them see how people who are performing at a very high level are treating their guests. Let them be that guest. Let them understand that from that perspective, and then bring that back and pull that through for our guests when they're in front of them.
Eric, that's an amazing point, because if you don't even know what the experience is supposed to be, how can you even deliver on that experience?
Right.
James, I find this topic really fascinating. Are you finding the same thing, that you're trying to train people that have never had the experiences that you're offering in some of your amazing places?
Certainly. We joke sometimes that it seems like folks certainly know how they want to be treated, but the same generation on the other side of the desk is trying to deliver it to them and isn't sure how.
Right.
So it does take some extra effort, and I think it combines some of the things we already talked about, finding the right people who have the capacity to learn to do that. Eric's point is excellent. That's a wonderful way to try to give them that exposure. The other way for us is, again, really hand selecting mentors for our team who know how to do it, so that they can shadow somebody who can demonstrate to them real time how they should be engaging their guests, dealing with challenges. I think the mentorship piece can't be overstated.
James, I find that to be fair to everybody, every generation gets slammed. certain people and generations are amazing. Certain people suck. When it comes to younger professionals out there, right? No smack at them. They've got it hard. But what percentage are you seeing out there that come into hospitality that are really destined for hospitality, that want that mentor? And then the ones that don't, can you save them? Can you get them interested? What happens then? Yeah, I know. Toughie, right?
I think there's plenty of folks out there that can thrive in this business.
Yeah.
And I believe it's for the reason that was mentioned earlier, which is you may bring them in one role, but there are 4 to 5 easily, general roles in a hotel that require different skill sets, different interests, different personalities. And so if you can get somebody in the door, give them good training, get them started, and have leadership that is flexible and willing to work with them, as opposed to saying, again, that you're failing in your role right now and trying to move that person on. Say, okay, what role will they do better in? What role would they like to do? And that comes from just that personal touch and conversation and trying to move them to something that is more fitting. But I think there's a great selection of people that are still available to thrive in our industry.
Yeah, I think so. And let me just tell you all out there, if you're trying to get people to work for you, remember the message we all have to preach is the hospitality industry is really every industry that's out there. From customer service to food and beverage to real estate to design to technology, I could go on and on and on. So it's incumbent upon all of us to get people excited in the hospitality industry. Jessica, how are you thinking about what we've been talking about here for the last couple of minutes?
Yeah, a few things. So, it's not just this next generation coming in and how do they get exposure maybe to this industry and business that they've not themselves partaken in. I think about like us in tertiary markets in a developing country where we've got people we're hiring who are of every generation, but maybe haven't never stayed at a hotel themselves. And so
Great point.
Some of our brands, we'll do things like on a practical level, for example, where this is again a Ritz-Carlton example, but it's part of the brand standard where as a part of orientation they have to go through it before they set foot on the floor. But as a part of their orientation, they have a dining experience in one of the guest restaurants where we treat them like like they are a customer, because we want them to have that full experience of, we're going to greet you with as much graciousness as possible. We are going to roll the red carpet out and make sure you have this phenomenal experience so that you know what it's like to be a customer. And it goes back to like our motto of ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. And so we try to do things like that help them get the exposure and experience. And it could be for a generation, could be for people who are, in a particular market. The other thing I was just thinking about as folks were talking is like, what is this generation, if we're going to go back to, Gen Z as it, or Gen Alpha that'll come behind them, like what are they seeking? Some of it is around like frictionless experiences. So we've got to have the right tech stack, and we're as guilty as others and are going through this journey of evolving our tech stack, but they want frictionless experiences.
But you guys are going through a huge
ginormous one. Yeah, but we've got
let me give you full credit. It's really, really hard when you're an early adopter of technology like Marriott was back in the day. So much to change. You guys, I think, have been working on for a while. I can't wait to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it as well. But they're also looking for purpose. Like I've heard people talk about Gen Z as Gen Y, like they want to know why for everything. And I've talked to people in other industries, retailers, for example, who actually envy hospitality because they say, like, there's not a lot of purpose in selling a handbag, but there is a lot of purpose in creating that experience for people in our hotels, the concept of travel. And so I actually think we've got a leg up when it comes to the next generation and why they want to work with us. And the other thing I just have been thinking about as you all were talking is there is this desire for flexibility and variety. And so one of the things that we're, continuing to put focus on is how do you make jobs more well-rounded, that it's not just narrowly, I am a front desk agent, but instead you've got some variety in terms of you may be checking someone in. You could also play years to them. You could also make them a drink at the bar. And so giving people that ability to not just be so narrowly focused on one thing, I hope is part of the equation for this.
It should be. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I want to clarify that's not necessarily for every type of property out there.
Sure.
Box downtown hotel, maybe not. but a regular hotel that's got some food and beverage and not a lot of check-ins. And yeah, I'm digging what you're saying.
Or you're a unionized environment, and that also
Right.
makes it hard too. So
Yes.
lots of dynamics for sure. But I think the more that we can, figure out the ways to drive flexibility and variety, and also help them see the sense of purpose, I'm really optimistic. Like I feel like there's so much to offer to this next generation.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir because I think we all think this is the best business in the world. And I've seen hotel prototypes, continue to incorporate more like a coffee bar into it and other things that keeps that associate engaged and flexible and doing more to be able to help with labor while also engaging that professional. Melissa, how are you thinking about what we've been saying here again? Because micro learning and stuff, it just has to keep going on and on and on, right? So how do you keep people engaged in that and keep people excited over time?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've loved listening to all of your answers. I never pass up the opportunity to learn from operators and the experts in the business. So it's interesting to hear how you all are thinking about these generational shifts. And I think a point that, as Jessica was calling out, that flexibility and adaptability, it goes back to the point on cross training. Like this will be like the most cross trained generation coming along, just because, I have a 15-year-old son, and we talk about his rate of consumption is like just so much more than what I grew up with. And
I know
so I think
videos at like 1.5 speed. It's crazy.
Or two videos at once.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So I think there's a lot of an expectation that of how they would be able to apply not that consumption in, but how they can translate that back out into jobs in ways where they're going to be bored if they're just doing one thing. So I think it's a great point saying that you made, Jessica, about hospitality being well positioned for the future in that sense that it connects with a lot of the sort of maybe values of the Y generation. I like that, but also having that variety of roles and ways to help. And then just going back to the customer, it's like being customer ready is really like our North Star. How do we help people build a customer ready world and where every frontline interaction is going to create value? And so the micro learning like backbone that we have that is key to our roots and how we grow into the future, I think blends really well with just how this next generation is used to being able to consume content themselves. Like I can't imagine like asking my son to sit down for a job and like take 4 hours of content or sit for a day, learning. Then there's just that excitement of being able to like learn something, apply it, and that application can be done in a digital world to start, where you have a place to sort of interact with the content, and then it can also be done in the real world. And you can also have ways to make this technology not just one way; it's a two-way world, now, especially with where Gen AI is going and being able to chat and have conversation. We can learn what people are asking as well and help use that information to turn it back around in a way that you can continue to bolster them. Or the point that was made earlier, just capture all the ideas and the things that they're seeing. Like think about what an untapped resource we have in all of those frontline employees who really know what's happening, and how you can harness all of that to just not only improve their ability to do their job, but in the opportunity to build the business. So I'm excited about all the ways that technology is going. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing otherwise, but it's in service of folks like you all that are in service of the customer, where I think that technology is in a good place to help elevate all of that. So.
It sure is, Melissa, and you're really addressing a need right now because as I got a great question from Scott Fisher. In the past decades, hotels have gone from having double coverage in guest services at every hotel, he says, to a reduced labor market with more mid-sized to smaller hotels often only having single coverage at the desk, right? So there's no continuous peer learning opportunities there used to be. So he wants to know what everyone's thoughts are and how a strong micro-learning option can at least partially be that peer learning partner, augmenting how we used to have those veterans working side by side with new team members. Eric, do you want to try that one first?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
That is important, right? I think when you talk about how the labor model has been pulled back, whether that's been pulled back because of expense control or whether because simply there isn't the talent there anymore to pair it and double staff that desk, but it's part of making sure that we're not rushing through the training. And I think, part of it, to pull back to what Jessica was saying about the why, making sure your associates understand the why. The how is a big piece of it, but just as important is the why. Because if they don't have that veteran leadership there to lean on when something arises, they might know how to do something, but if they don't understand why they're doing it, they can't be agile, right? Something we talked about earlier.
That's so true, Eric. I mean, think about it. When you were a kid and your parents would say, because, that didn't help you. But if they told you why, then you'd pay attention and you might actually listen over there. So not to compare associates to children, but more like we have to be able to give people answers and an understanding in order to get them on our side and be able to be as productive as they possibly can and achieve the ultimate results. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Eric hit it really well.
Yeah.
And the training and mentoring piece can bridge some of that. So giving people the time to train properly, mentors to watch and shadow before they go out on their own, and then having great leaders. So you may only have one person at the desk, but there's going to be some management staff there. Is the manager available? Again, we talked about earlier, not buried in paperwork at their desk, but available to help maybe that more junior employee deal with a challenging situation, to step out there, join them, be able to demonstrate the proper way to handle that, or just support them as they work their way through it. So I think good, engaged managers can offset some of that short and small staffing type situation.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I want to ask you, Melissa, and our anonymous attendee here is saying wants to do an AI question. You talked a little bit about the back and forth that we'll be able to have with AI. So how are you thinking about that in terms of training, onboarding, and interacting with guests? This person wants to know.
Yeah, we think about this a lot. And I think even just pre-AI, thinking about some evolution with this example of only being one person at the desk, this next generation is used to being able to like be on Discord or be in a chat group. So even though you don't want them texting in front of a guest, like they're not going to think I'm only limited to the person that's next to me to be able to learn. So just leaning into that, like AI is a tool to like amplify all of that ability to be connected with one another and really learn from each other and learn, keeping a continuous learning and continuous improvement model for the business. So I think 4 ways that we're thinking about AI, that we have some things in solution today, some things we're imagining, but I'll put them out here.
Right.
One pillar is like creating all the content that you need, like making that at the, push of a button for folks where you can continue to evolve, make it immersive, make it engaging without the cost that used to be, so that you can make, content itself much more accessible for folks to be able to use that content to create either role modeling or whatever you want out of it in a low cost way. It's building on what we just talked about with being there by yourself. The second way I would think is it's having that like, amplifier of yourself in your pocket. How can you have at your fingertips, like with these various chatbots, and as they grow, they're not just going to be, type into it. We already know you can talk into them. How do you always have that resource you feel like you can go to, so you don't have to know everything in an upfront world, or even in a continuous learning world? You can be in an on-demand world of getting knowledge and getting help and getting support, or just being curious and asking questions and asking when you're curious. So I think a third way is like how the business can use AI to react to things that are just happening in the flow. There's a lot of sort of like checklists, or I see something that I need to go huddle with the team after and talk. And you never want to take away all that like personal like bonding of the team, but there's a way that all of that can just be sort of queued up behind the scenes, and you're not having to like keep a mental list of the list and everything that you need to do, so that you can make sure the things that maybe a manager wants to talk about with their team is always being captured in a way they can make that actionable and go from actionable needs to action needs, where the AI tools can sort of take that cognitive load away and make sure that those interactions actually happen. And then a fourth one I'd say is really how businesses can move into a world where they can listen and respond so much faster. We have ways to listen to guests through like digital experience, through rating reviews. There's a lot of outreach that you're doing, but in that world, in that moment, and I hinted at this before, like there just really aren't great tools now. It's an opportunity that we're looking to see how we can fill, to sort of like take that input from the team in a way that they're prompted when there's something that they know could be better about the business, and be constantly mining that in a way that they also feel seen and heard for what the information that they brought forward and how that was able to be used in the business, or how maybe they can even be compensated in a world where like their ideas are being turned into business opportunities. We really keep going into the ways we can imagine that technology can help. But you can just mine so much more information and make information so much more accessible, useful, and put to use. And so So the possibilities are really endless for us. So
I think that's fantastic, Jessica. So what we're really talking about is access to learning, being there for what you need whenever you need it. For me, I will never be able to remember how many teaspoons are in a tablespoon when I'm cooking, so I'm constantly looking that up. So I'm sure that we all need constant reinforcement. How are you thinking about learning, reinforcement, and all of these issues that Melissa just brought up that she was thinking about?
Yeah, I think that reinforcement's really important. Like you don't remember, a lot of what you consume at the beginning of some kind of learning experience. And so you got to recall, reinforce on a continual basis. And I think the thing is, like, we all intuitively know this in our industry, right? It's like the reason why we have daily huddles or stand-ups or pre-shift meetings, right? Those for me are, yes, there's an operational component 100%, but it's a learning moment. And so like we drive that every single day. I think now that you've got tech that you can layer into that daily moment and it's really personalized to the person, when you marry those two things together, for me, I just think there's so much potential in terms of have that team moment, get to the ops of the day, and then get that personalized learning that really makes sense for you based on where you have some gaps and need reinforcement. And so bringing the two things together, I just think is where we're going to see a lot of magic happen. And just to like make it real for folks, like we launched a new learning platform with Axonify a little over a year ago. And so there are these daily questions that people are served up. It's optional for them to answer them. But already in a year, we have had, if you would believe it, over 200 million questions answered by our associates who just want to consume. Some of it is like my kids are on me every day. They go into my app and they're like, "Where are you on the leaderboard? You need to do your day."
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so they do that with Duolingo and then our learning app. But I think, when you see the power of that and how it's driving some knowledge retention and like the application day to day, pretty cool. So,
Jessica, give us an example or two of just some of those basic questions that are asked in any category.
oh my gosh. So we there's a gamut. It's everything from human trafficking to knowledge about your brand, data security, but of course a service focus. So it'll be everything from we give you a scenario, what's the right thing to do, or we want to make sure you know the basics around, how you want to, when you should start engaging a guest, how many feet away, when you want to greet them. And so then your questions change based on where you have knowledge gaps. But yeah, it's everything from compliance to service to your brand and things in between.
That's pretty cool. Believe it or not, I think we're already getting to our final thoughts portion. So if you guys asked a question, I'm really sorry. Somebody just put something about short attention spans, how we can tailor training to ensure business outcomes are aligned no matter what their location or role. Melissa, I'll ask you to do final thoughts and kind of fold that into your answer as well, because I feel like it gets back to the micro learning category.
Yeah. I mean, look, we understand that the customer comes first, the guest comes first. We're here to help the team make every moment matter.
Yep.
And so giving that team like Jessica said, the small things that they need, the very important things, but impactful things that they need, that are going to be able to not take their time away, but have them in this ongoing learning and ongoing improvement, ongoing curiosity and ongoing thoughts of a mindset of betterment. How do I continue to improve myself and continue to improve the company? That's behind what we're doing so that we can echo with the team what they need to deliver with the customer and the guest and help your businesses continue to grow.
Excellent. Eric, any final thoughts, observations?
Yeah, I think listening to the panel has been really helpful, for myself and hearing that, I think for, guest satisfaction to shine through, it really comes down to culture. And I think what I'm hearing is that for that to shine through, it comes down to empowerment. And for empowerment to really be effective, it comes back to training. And I think that a lot of what we've talked about with the team here and, some of the technology that's out there and that Axonify is, putting their weight behind, really makes that possible for us to empower our teams and trust that they're able to pull that through. So, really, really enjoyed speaking with everyone and hearing everybody's thoughts. But that was the takeaway from me.
Great. How about you, James?
Eric summarized it really well. So I'd say, invest in your team. When you do that, they're happier, they stay longer, they take care of your guests, and less turnover is less expense. That's going to help you at the bottom line. Great guest scores is customers who come back and are willing to pay more to do it because they know how well they get taken care of. that's great for your bottom line. So, investing in your team is the key.
Do you have any examples of one employee who excelled and like created a lot of excitement and energy around the property, helping everyone kind of excel?
We had an employee who liked to design these sort of handmade and they're like water bottles that they make by hand, personalize. And she would do it if she had a specific guest coming to the hotel,
Yep.
or found out that a guest had a family member back at home who was maybe struggling with something or loved a particular team, or someone on her team who had a specific interest or challenge. And she would make these water bottles, and again, all personalized, and they were very useful. They were very functional, but they showed this little bit of love and care and personalization. And it's amazing the letters we get from guests that would pour in over the months about the water bottle they got from our general manager, who thought about them a month later. And again, you see people come back and stay in that hotel because they really felt loved and cared for as an individual. You're not just a guest. It's little things like that are just amazing, and people resonate.
You know what, James? It's those little things that mean the most and are the things that connect forever with people out there. Jessica, why don't you take us home?
Yeah, final thought, and it dovetails off of what everyone has said. Like, I think that at the end of the day, we're talking about like human skills that we want to keep imparting in people. All the tech in the world is going to help us be more efficient, create less friction, but there's still this need for human skills. And I think, when I think about Gen Z, when I think about, the example that, James just gave, I'm just really excited about what we have ahead of us to like really put a spotlight on our industry, and the fact that like we will be imparting in people like these great communication skills, this great EQ, this great leadership and teamwork, that's going to help create those experiences that folks have shared, but also differentiate us from other industries that may be in a place of peril because it doesn't require human skills. So
Yep.
I'm just really optimistic about what's ahead of us and the role that we play in it.
I agree. And I think our society is really at a transition point and not the direction that most people think. While we continue to put our faces in our phones and all of that, I think we're going to start to move away from that and recapture the one-on-one human experience. That's why I'm a fundamental believer, particularly after hearing what our folks have to say today, that people are more important than ever to creating the experiences that to get guests to come back more and more and pay premium prices. But in order to do that, we have to have a well-trained, enthusiastic staff that's not a one-done experience when it comes to training. It's a continuous motion, micro sessions every day, small little questions that reinforce, re-educate, or help get people to a goal that they may not have realized they wanted. Which also reminds us that we've got to find out what your employees' destiny are. Because when we find out who they ultimately need to become, then we're all going to find more success than together. So remember, we got to give them the experiences and tools to succeed. Companies like Axonify and brands like Crestline, and brands like that are doing a great job over there. I want to thank all of you for being here today. I hope you guys had some fun out there in the audience. And I want to thank Jessica, James, Melissa, and Eric for being here. I'm Glenn Haussman. Thanks, Hotel Business. We'll see you guys next time. It's been an amazing time. See you all later. Bye-bye.